The ultimatum. The quantum broadcast arrived on a Tuesday. Admiral Elena Reyes stood in Earth's Combined Defense Command Center as the alien transmission materialized on the main view screen. The holographic image showed a being with iridescent scales that shifted between emerald and sapphire. Its 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, regarded the camera with what could only be described as contempt. "People of Earth," the alien began, its voice translated through advanced linguistic algorithms. "I am Supreme Overseer Kalvor of the Arvaran hegemony. Our civilization has observed your species for 3 of your centuries. We have watched your wars, your environmental catastrophes, and your primitive attempts at spacefaring technology." Elena's hand tightened around her command console. 20 years in the United Earth Defense Force had taught her to recognize a threat when she heard one. "The hegemony's Council of Elders has determined that your species requires guidance. You will submit to immediate integration into our political structure as a protectorate state. Your military forces will disarm. Your governmental bodies will accept Arvaran oversight. Your technological development will proceed according to our established protocols." The creature's upper eyes narrowed. "You have 72 Earth hours to respond. Should you refuse these generous terms, we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of defiance." The hologram showed a massive fleet of crystalline ships hovering at the edge of the solar system. "Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The command center erupted into chaos. "Signal origin," Elena demanded, her voice cutting through the noise. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her communications officer, looked up from his console. "Just beyond Neptune's orbit, Admiral. 17 vessels. Configuration unknown. General alert. I want the Security Council assembled within the hour." As officers rushed to comply with her orders, Elena noticed Dr. Vikram Patel still staring at the empty view screen. The physicist had been consulting on military applications of quantum technology when the message arrived. "Doctor," she said, approaching him, "something caught your attention." Vikram turned to her, his eyes wide. "The transmission. There was a secondary data stream embedded within it, something they didn't intend us to see." "Explain." "When quantum signals propagate across spacetime, they leave trace patterns, like ripples in a pond. Most species wouldn't notice them, but my team has been studying quantum entanglement for decades." He gestured to his tablet. "The Arvarans don't know we can detect these patterns." Elena studied the complex equations on his screen. "And what do these patterns tell us?" "They're scanning us, Admiral. Their ships are mapping every military installation, every power grid, every communication network. This isn't just an ultimatum. It's reconnaissance for an invasion." The United Earth Security Council convened in Geneva with representatives from every nation on the planet. The debate raged for hours. Some advocated immediate surrender to the technologically superior aliens. Others demanded defiance at any cost. Elena stood before them, her uniform crisp despite 18 hours without sleep. "The Arvaran fleet outmatches our conventional forces by several orders of magnitude," she stated bluntly. "Their quantum technology suggests they possess weapons capabilities we can barely comprehend. Then surrender is our only option," the Chinese representative argued. "We cannot risk the lives of billions in a futile gesture of pride." "With respect," Elena countered, "Dr. Patel's analysis of their transmission indicates the Arvarans have already mapped strategic targets for attack. Their generous terms are merely a formality. They expect resistance, and they're prepared to crush it." The room fell silent. "However," she continued, "the very technology they use to threaten us may provide an opportunity." She nodded to Vikram, who stepped forward. "The Arvaran quantum broadcast revealed something critical about their technological approach," he explained. "Their systems rely on absolute precision, mathematical perfection. But quantum mechanics isn't about perfection. It's about probability and uncertainty." He brought up a holographic display showing complex wave functions. "For the past 15 years, my team has been developing what we call phase shift technology. Instead of trying to achieve perfect quantum states, we embrace the inherent uncertainty. We've built propulsion systems that don't just move through space. They temporarily exist in multiple potential states at once. And how does this help us against an armada of alien warships? Asked the Russian representative. Alina stepped forward again. Because their scanning systems, their targeting arrays, their entire tactical approach assumes objects exist in a single predictable state. Phase shift technology would make our ships virtually undetectable to their sensors. You're talking about ships we don't have, the American representative pointed out. Alina and Vikram exchanged glances. Actually, Vikram said carefully, we do. The lunar facility wasn't on any official maps. Carved into the far side of the moon, shielded from Earth's prying telescopes and satellite surveillance, Project Prometheus had operated in absolute secrecy for over a decade. Alina's shuttle docked at an innocuous-looking crater rim. As the airlock cycled, she turned to Vikram. You realize if we're wrong about this, we're committing humanity to a war we cannot win. The physicist nodded solemnly. And if we're right, we're revealing humanity's most closely guarded secret to an enemy who will stop at nothing to obtain it. The inner doors opened to reveal General Wyzon, the project's military director. Admiral Rice. Dr. Patel. The Council's authorization came through. Follow me. They descended into the lunar crust via a series of high-speed elevators. When they finally emerged into the main chamber, even Alina, who had known of the project's existence, gasped at the scale of what humanity had accomplished in secret. The cavern stretched for kilometers, its ceiling supported by massive columns. Floating in construction cradles were dozens of sleek vessels, their hulls gleaming under the artificial lighting. Engineers and technicians swarmed around them like bees around a hive. The Prometheus fleet, General Zhang announced with undisguised pride. 27 vessels equipped with Dr. Patel's phase shift drives. Only 5 are fully operational, but we've been accelerating production since we detected the Arvaran ships entering the solar system 3 weeks ago. Alina approached the nearest ship. Unlike conventional spacecraft with their bulky propulsion systems, these vessels were elegant, almost organic in design. How many know about this? She asked. Fewer than 200 people, Zhang replied. The Security Council established the project after the Proxima Centauri signals in 2099. We've been drawing resources and personnel through thousands of shell corporations and classified research initiatives. Vikram walked alongside a massive power conduit feeding into one of the ships. Each vessel contains a quantum core that allows it to partially phase between potential states of existence. To an observer or an enemy sensor array, they would appear to flicker in and out of reality. The disadvantage, Zhang added, is that while in a phase-shifted state, conventional weapons are ineffective. The ships must return to normal phase to attack. Alina studied the nearest vessel's sleek lines, so we can evade but not engage while shifted. Precisely, Vikram confirmed. It's the fundamental trade-off. She turned to face both men. We have less than 60 hours before the Arvarans expect our answer. How quickly can you have the operational vessels ready for deployment? Zhang's expression hardened. 48 hours for the 5 completed ships. We can have another 7 at minimum functional capacity in 72. Then we work with what we have, Alina said firmly. I'll need your best pilots trained on these systems immediately. Dr. Patel, I want you to join the flagship as technical advisor. Admiral, Zhang said cautiously, the Security Council authorized defensive preparations, not an offensive strike. Alina's gaze remained fixed on the ships before her. The best defense, General, is to demonstrate that we're not as primitive as the Arvarans believe. We're not launching an attack. We're delivering our response in person. As the deadline approached, Earth's official channels maintained diplomatic communications with the Arvaran fleet, requests for clarification, proposals for face-to-face meetings, and carefully calculated delays kept the aliens occupied, while the real preparations continued in secret. Alina stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, the first and most advanced of the Prometheus vessels. Around her, a hand-picked crew ran through final systems checks. Dr. Patil monitored the phase shift drive, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Status report, Alina commanded. All systems nominal. Admiral, her executive officer responded. The other 4 vessels report ready for launch. Phase shift drives are synchronized. Alina opened a secure channel to the fleet. This is Admiral Rice to all Prometheus vessels. Our mission is clear. We will demonstrate to the Arvaran hegemony that humanity will not be subjugated. We will not fire unless fired upon, but we will show them exactly what they're facing if they choose conflict over cooperation. She paused, looking at the determined faces of her crew. The Arvarans believe they're dealing with a primitive species that will either surrender or be easily defeated. Today, we prove them wrong. Prepare for launch sequence. As the massive lunar bay doors slid open, revealing the star-filled vacuum beyond, Alina gave the order that would change humanity's destiny forever. Let's deliver our answer. The counterattack. Supreme Overseer Kolvor stood on the command deck of the Arvaran flagship, the Eternal Dominance. His scales rippled with anticipation as the deadline for Earth's response approached. The planet below remained silent, its primitive communication networks buzzing with confusion and fear. Their leaders continue to delay, reported Sub-Commander Zetherall. They request another extension for deliberation. Kolvor's inner eyelids flickered dismissively. Typical of undeveloped species, they waste time with debate while the inevitable approaches. He gestured to the tactical display. Prepare the demonstration strike. Target their largest military installation, the one they call Pentagon. A precision beam weapon should suffice. Supreme Overseer, the sensor officer interrupted. We're detecting anomalous readings near the lunar surface. Elaborate. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. They appear to be fluctuating in and out of detection range. Kolvor moved to the sensor array, his interest piqued. Some form of cloaking technology. Impossible. Our analysis indicated they are at least a century from developing such capabilities. The sensor officer adjusted the settings. Not cloaking, Overseer. Something else. The objects seemed to exist in partial quantum states. Before Kolvor could respond, the tactical officer shouted, "Vessels approaching." 5. No. Configuration is unclear. They're moving at impossible speeds. The main view screen activated, showing 5 sleek ships emerging from behind Earth's moon. Unlike the bulky, utilitarian vessels that humans had previously deployed in their limited space endeavors, these were elegant, almost predatory in design. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. Kolvor straightened his spine, 4 eyes narrowing. Display. Admiral Alina Reyes appeared on screen, her uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's Unified Defense Command. Supreme Overseer Kolvor. I am Admiral Alina Reyes of the United Earth Defense Force. I come to deliver humanity's response to your ultimatum. Your response is noted, human, Kolvor replied coldly. However, your primitive display of resistance is futile. The vessels you have brought cannot hope to stand against the might of the hegemony. Alina's expression remained impassive. Perhaps you should scan our vessels more carefully, Overseer. You might find them less primitive than you expected. At that moment, the 5 human ships simultaneously activated their phase shift drives. To the Arvaran sensors, they seemed to flicker like candle flames in a breeze, becoming momentarily translucent before solidifying again in different positions. Impossible, the tactical officer exclaimed. They're manipulating quantum probability fields. Kolvor's scales darkened with rage. Lock weapons and fire. The Eternal Dominance unleashed a barrage of energy beams, each capable of vaporizing conventional matter. But the human vessels shifted between quantum states, the deadly energy passing harmlessly through their partially phased forms. On the bridge of the Defiant, Alina watched the Arvaran response with grim satisfaction. Phase shift functioning within parameters, Vikram reported, his eyes on the quantum core readings. We can maintain this state for approximately 12 minutes before requiring a cooldown cycle. Weapons status. Elena asked her tactical officer. Armed and ready, Admiral. But we'll need to drop phase shift to use them. Elena nodded. All vessels, execute maneuver Theta. Surround the Arvaran flagship, but maintain phase shift. Let's show them what we're capable of. The 5 human ships moved with precision that belied their experimental nature, weaving through the Arvaran formation and taking positions around the Eternal Dominance. The alien vessels continued firing, their advanced targeting systems failing to lock onto ships that refused to commit to a single state of existence. Admiral, Vikram said urgently, I'm detecting energy buildup in the Arvaran flagship. They're preparing to deploy some kind of massive area weapon. Elena's expression hardened. They're getting desperate. All vessels, prepare for synchronized attack. We drop phase on my mark. Fire a single precision volley targeting their main weapon emitters, then immediately resume phase shift. On the Arvaran flagship, Kalvor watched in mounting fury as his fleet's weapons proved ineffective against the human vessels. Deploy the quantum disruption field, he ordered. If they're manipulating quantum states, we'll collapse their field manipulations. The field requires 30 seconds to charge, Overseer, his weapons officer replied. Begin the sequence. On the Defiant, Vikram's eyes widened as he interpreted the energy readings. Admiral, they're deploying a quantum disruption field. If it activates while we're in phase shift. All vessels, execute attack pattern now. Elena commanded. In perfect synchronization, the 5 human ships dropped out of phase shift, becoming fully material. Before the Arvaran gunners could react, precision energy lances struck the flagship's primary weapon emitters. The quantum disruption field generator exploded in a cascade of blue-white energy. Resume phase shift. Elena ordered, and the human vessels flickered back into their quantum uncertain state just as the remaining Arvaran ships opened fire. On the Eternal Dominance, secondary explosions rocked the massive vessel. Emergency containment fields activated as atmosphere vented from damaged sections. Damage report, Kalvor demanded. Primary weapons offline. Quantum disruption field generator destroyed. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, his second-in-command reported. Impossible, Kalvor hissed. How could they coordinate such a precise attack? Overseer, we're receiving transmissions from the other Arvaran vessels. They're requesting instructions. The humans have demonstrated technological capabilities far beyond our intelligence assessments. Kalvor stared at the tactical display, watching as the human ships continued their dance around his fleet. Impossible to target, impossible to predict. For the first time in his 3-century career of conquest, he felt uncertainty. Open a channel to the human flagship. Admiral Elena Reyes appeared on screen again, her expression calm but resolute. You have my attention, Admiral, Kalvor said, his voice carefully modulated to hide his shock. It appears our assessment of your species was incomplete. That's one way of putting it, Overseer, Elena replied. Here's another. We will not be subjugated. We will not disarm. We will not accept guidance from those who approach us with threats rather than respect. She leaned forward slightly. But neither do we seek conflict. The ships you've encountered represent only a fraction of our capabilities. We could have chosen to attack your fleet directly when you entered our system. Instead, we waited to hear your intentions. And now that those intentions are clear, Kalvor asked, now we suggest a reconsideration of your approach. The Arvaran hegemony can have humanity as an enemy or as a potential ally. The choice is yours. Kalvor's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as he processed this development. The Council of Elders would demand an explanation for this failure. Yet the human technology, this phase shift capability, represented an advancement that could benefit the hegemony. Stand down your weapons, he ordered his fleet. To Elena, he said, perhaps there is room for negotiation. Your technology is of interest to us. As yours is to us, Elena acknowledged. But negotiation begins with mutual respect, not demands for surrender. You propose an exchange of knowledge instead of conquest. I propose that the Arvaran hegemony recognize Earth as a sovereign power with whom diplomatic relations might be established, should you prove worthy of our trust. The audacity of the statement would have been unthinkable hours earlier, but Calvor found himself reassessing everything he had believed about this species. Any civilization that could develop such advanced quantum manipulation in secret was not to be underestimated. I will consult with the Council of Elders, he said finally. In the meantime, a temporary cessation of hostilities seems prudent. Elena nodded. We'll maintain position, but will take no aggressive action unless provoked. I suggest you use this time to consider what kind of relationship the Arvaran hegemony wishes to have with Earth in the centuries to come. As the transmission ended, Calvor turned to his second-in-command. Begin repairs, and prepare a detailed analysis of what we've witnessed here today. For the Council's review. For my own, Calvor replied thoughtfully. I suspect humanity will prove to be unlike any species we have encountered before. 3 days later, Admiral Elena Reyes stood before the United Earth Security Council in Geneva. The representatives of humanity's nations watched in stunned silence as she concluded her report. The Arvaran hegemony has withdrawn to the edge of our solar system. Their supreme overseer has requested formal diplomatic channels be established. They no longer speak of conquest, but of cultural exchange. The American representative leaned forward. And you believe this change of heart? I believe we demonstrated that the cost of conquering Earth would be too high, Elena replied. The Arvarans are pragmatic. They've reassessed us as a potential ally rather than an easy conquest. Thanks to technology they didn't know we possessed, the Chinese representative observed. Technology that a select few kept hidden from most of this council. Elena met his gaze steadily. Project Prometheus was established with this exact scenario in mind. Had its existence been common knowledge, we would have lost the element of surprise. And now, asked the Russian representative, do we reveal all our capabilities to these aliens? Dr. Vikram Patel, seated beside Elena, spoke up. The phase shift technology we demonstrated is merely the beginning of what's possible. We showed them enough to earn their respect, but not enough to reveal our full potential. Which is? Vikram smiled slightly. The ships you saw represent the first generation of quantum manipulation technology. The second generation is already under development. By embracing quantum uncertainty rather than fighting against it, we've opened doors the Arvarans haven't even conceived of yet. Elena added, humanity has earned a place at the galactic table not through surrender, but through innovation and resolve. The Arvarans, and any other spacefaring civilizations watching, now know that Earth is not a world to be conquered. We are a force to be reckoned with. As the council chamber erupted into questions and debate, Elena gazed out the window at the blue sky above. Somewhere beyond that peaceful expanse, the universe had become a much larger and more complex place. Humanity had faced its first interstellar challenge and emerged not just intact, but stronger. The stars no longer seemed quite so distant or quite so threatening. Humanity had claimed its place among them.